Hi, so I want to go over adding each one of these sensors very quickly. So I'm going to go into the app and I'm going to go into sensors, and I am going to remove every one of these sensors that I have. So I'm just going to click delete, and I actually have one in the emergency sensor, so I'm going to delete that one also. And what I'm going to do here is go back to the top and I'm going to add these door sensors. So I'm going to click add, and I'm going to trigger the door sensor that I want to associate to that number. And now it's sensor 2, and I'm going to associate this one to sensor 2, so I am going to remove and activate it, and now it's associated to sensor 2. And for the third one, I'm going to do something special. I am going to associate the third sensor here to the emergency. And what that does is, even though the alarm is disarmed, it's disarmed for every other sensor except the one that I associated with the emergency. So I'm going to click on emergency, and now I'm going to trigger it. And now, as you can see, that alarm or that sensor is associated to this sensor 8. And now for the motion detector. So I have the motion detector and I have the power source here. And what I'm going to do is turn it on. So there's a button on the side here. So I'm going to turn it on. And so for this motion detector, they call it a PIR sensor, which stands for passive infrared sensor. So you notice every time it senses motion, it turns red. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to associate that one to sensor 3. So I'm going to click add. And when I trigger the sensor, you see, when I triggered that sensor, it actually added or associated that with sensor 3. So that's how you associate the motion detector. And I actually turned off the alarm because every time I set off the alarm, or every time I set off the motion, the alarm sounds. So I actually have that disabled. Now, the difference between control switch and push switch is they're not named properly. The control switch is actually enable or disable. So you could think of the terminology simply as enable or disable for the control switch. And for the push switch, that is for the notification. So for example, I am going to set off the first alarm here. And let me get rid of these notifications. You'll notice when the motion detector, which is the association to the sensor number 3, went off, I got a notification on my phone. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to trigger this motion detector. I'm going to trigger number 1 here, and you'll notice I have the push notification on. So I'm going to get that notification on my phone once it gets triggered. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger it. And you'll notice right away I got that notification. Now I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm going to turn off the notification for that particular sensor. And I'm going to trigger this sensor again. And you'll notice I didn't get a notification this time on my phone. So that's what that push notification is. Now I want to show you the difference between these sensors and the emergency one. Is in the remote control, I am going to disarm my sensors. So you see I'm going to push the disarm button. And you'll notice when I push that disarm button, I get a notification that the remote controls were disarmed from remote control 2. And you'll notice that sensor 1 and 2 is disarmed, but you'll notice the emergency sensor which is this one I associated with sensor 8, which is the emergency sensor, is not disarmed. So even though all of these are disarmed, this particular one is not. So if I trigger it, you see it still sounds. So that is basically the difference between all of these sensors and some of the settings on this app, and I hope that helped, and please subscribe, and thank you for watching.